Hello and welcome to my channel. It's your boy, Tranquil Comrade. In honor of fall, aka spooky season, I'm gonna read you scary stories. I'd like to thank the authors of these stories for allowing me to share them on my channel. I'll link their pages and their stories down below. Bundle up, get cozy, and prepare to be scared. This first story is by Reddit user champion of bear. It's titled Wife. I got home from work one day and took off my jacket, exhausted. I slumped into the living room and crashed hard on the couch. After a few minutes of relaxing, I let myself shut my eyes and drift off, but I was suddenly awoken when I heard the sound of the door opening. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and began to hear a cheery voice. "Hello, baby, I'm home." I could recognize that voice anywhere. It sounded so uplifting and friendly to the ear. It belonged to the beautiful woman that I married only a few months before. I was still lounging on the couch with my eyes shut, but I could still imagine her coming in through the door in her dirty work uniform. She would feel so exhausted, but look so beautiful. The sound of her voice made me almost fully wake up. I began to sit up and wipe the sleep from my eyes. I thought it was a little strange for a moment because, well, I don't think I've ever heard her call me baby like that in the 3 years we've known each other. Was everything alright? "Honey, is that you?" I asked. "Yeah," she responded. "I just walked in." I put my feet on the floor and was ready to stand up and go see my beautiful wife. But I heard her voice again before I could get up. "I'm going to take a shower. I feel kinda gross, and I want to clean myself real quick." As she began to finish her sentence, the sound of her voice got further and further away. I assumed that she was walking up the stairs. I realized that I wouldn't be able to see her before she got in the shower, so I laid back down onto the couch and almost immediately felt relaxed again. As I laid, a thought kept coming to me. I kept thinking about how much more comfortable I would be on the bed in our bedroom upstairs. And I knew I was right. It would. As much as I didn't want to get up off the couch, I knew that it would be much nicer laying under the covers with proper pillows under my head. I heard the water turn on upstairs. My wife had just gotten in the shower. Then another thought came to me. I would be able to see her when she got out the shower. She would feel clean and pretty once again, and she'd be fully ready to sit with me and talk about her day. It only took another few seconds before I was fully convinced. I began to sluggishly rise off the couch and make the long trek over to the stairs in the front hallway. I started to slowly ascend them, but I froze when I heard the front door open behind me. I nervously wheeled around and saw my beautiful wife standing in the doorway. She was dressed in her usual work uniform as she aggressively shook the dirt off her shoes. She finally looked up and spotted me in the stairs. "Hello, dearest," she greeted. I did not respond. I stared at my wife, agape. She took off her purse and withdrew her phone. She looked slightly exhausted as she began to tap randomly around the screen, but she quickly looked back at me once she realized I was standing frozen. Her face became concerned. "Is everything all right?" she asked after a moment of silence. Just then, the water shut off upstairs. It only took a moment for me to realize that whatever had come into my house a few minutes before, whatever thing was standing in my bathroom at that moment, whatever it was not my wife. Whatever was in the shower had turned it off upon hearing my real wife come into the door. I quickly turned back around and bolted up the stairs, focusing my attention on the closed bathroom door ahead of me. I threw it open and looked over at the shower. It was wet, and the curtain had obviously been flung open, but no one was inside. "Is everything all right?" my wife worriedly shouted from downstairs. I didn't respond. I looked around the bathroom for any trace of the creature that was in there. I spotted a trail of wet footprints next to the shower. I followed them over to the bathroom window. It was wide open, which allowed for a large gust of wind to waft through the house. I peered out the window and saw deep claw marks on the grass outside. They were inhumanly large, and they led into the forest behind the house. That's spooky. I absolutely would not have rushed upstairs. I would have ran straight out the door. This guy is brave. He also didn't warn his wife, which is kind of a bad move for safety reasons. This next story is by Reddit user Punk and Prose. It's titled "Escape Before He Awakes." A change of clothes, keys, shoes, duffel bag, cash so he couldn't trace her. She couldn't risk writing it down, so she recited it in her head. The night fell, and she waited for the sound of his slow, steady breathing. Carefully, heart pounding, she slipped from the bed. It wasn't just fear overwhelming her, but humiliation, that she'd missed the red flags for all the ways he'd come to betray her in River. But it wasn't the thing to focus on right now. Danny was not a heavy sleeper. She crept around the room, gathering the most essential things: a change of clothes, keys, shoes, duffel bag, cash. She glanced at Danny sleeping and quietly slid a pair of scissors into the bag. Across the hall, she put River's things in the bag and slung it over her shoulder and scooped the girl out of bed into her arms. River began to stir. "Mommy, shh, baby, we need to be real quiet because Daddy's asleep. We can't wake him." If her daughter blew this escape, she could not guarantee either of their lives would end well. River put her head sleepily against her chest as she carried the child and the bag outside. She threw the bag into the back seat, strapped River into her car seat, and floored it, looking behind repeatedly, relieved to see the dark road empty behind her. It was an hour before she dared to stop. The light from the rest stop prompted River to stir. "Where are we, Mommy?" "We're going to see the family, remember?" "Where's Daddy?" "Don't worry about Daddy right now, love." She gazed at her beautiful daughter, regarding the curls she adored. She didn't want to have to cut her hair, but she needed to if they were going to succeed at this. In the rest stop bathroom, she snipped the last of River's lovely hair, then started on her own. "Arms up," she said, and River obeyed, allowing her to put her in the white gown and shoes. "We look silly," River said. "We look holy," she corrected. She prayed that God would forgive. They were supposed to have done the haircutting ritual 3 days ago, as a required cleansing before the migration, before Danny had approached her and said he was having doubts about their faith, before he'd questioned his infinity breadth of the moon's motivations and refused to give the payment to migrate to the next realm, before he turned his back on the light and tried to keep River from it too, threatening to leave and gain custody if the talk of the migration continued. So she played along, suppressing her horror at his apostasy until she could make their escape. They walked toward the encampment, and she smiled at the sight of hundreds of other people, the family clad in white gowns, ready to go be with God. She took the cup of tea she was handed and gave River her sippy cup. Oh no, the cult. Wow, that took a quick turn. I can't believe that father was trying to keep his child from being with God. So disrespectful. Just kidding, that's evil. I'm really glad that story's fake. I could see that being on like an Am I the Asshole forum, and everybody for some reason just agreeing with the woman. This one is from Reddit user Shytown 12076. It's titled, "My Dad Buries Bodies." I was in kindergarten when it happened. I watched from my bedroom window as my dad lugged my mom's limp body into the woods behind our home, dug a shallow grave, and buried her. Wow, this one's off to a rough start. Scary off the bat. I remember him phoning 911 and concocting a story about her going missing. I'll never forget how masterfully he handled the police questioning at our home that day, perfectly reciting his phony recollection of events, crying at the right moments, and angrily demanding that officers bring his wife home. Time passed, and Mom's case grew cold, eventually becoming an afterthought. Dad went on with his life, parenting my sister and I, and things were normal, until it happened again. I stared out to the back porch one night to witness my dad carrying the lifeless body of the neighbor into the woods. Just as with Mom, he dug a shallow grave and proceeded to bury him. Once again, he dealt with the police with ease when suspicion against him arose. I remember him making eye contact with me as he walked the cops to the door, an unspoken understanding to remain silent about the situation. Life moved forward, and things were quiet at the house, until it happened again. I stood in the backyard and watched silently as my dad carried my sister's dead body out of the house and towards the woods. All of a sudden, he paused, laid my sister on the ground, and turned to look at me. We stood facing each other in complete silence, unsure of what to say or do next. After what seemed like an eternity, a weeping voice broke the stalemate. I can't continue to keep silent about this. I'm sorry, but when the police come, I'm going to tell them the truth. You really think they're gonna believe a child did it? Grab the shovel and get digging. Oh my god. Wow. That plot twist was crazy. Oh my god. Oh my god. Wow. Damn. That's a messed up child. Oh my god, that one was so good, I'm shook. I thought he was gonna be a ghost. Like, I don't know. Maybe his dad already murdered him. And he's just watching from the window as a ghost. Oh no, he stood in the backyard. He stood in the backyard. Watching. I really, really love horror stories that aren't predictable at all. I never would have guessed that the child was a murderer. That child needs help though, oh my god. I still can't believe that little kid was a little psychopath. And I was just reading it from his POV like everything was cool. I was like, I wonder why he hasn't snitched on his dad. It's because it's his dad who's protecting him. Ooh. 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 No. Honestly, at first I was like, damn, maybe he just doesn't like his mom and that's why he didn't say anything. This one's by horror writer Dan DeLuise. Please go check out the rest of his work. I'll link his Amazon author page down below. He has 2 books out right now. This one's titled, My Brother Didn't Leave His Room for 3 days. My parents wouldn't let me check on him. On the 3rd night, Jacob didn't come out of his room. I got the courage to bring it up to Mom. People don't sleep for this long, I said. She was cooking a casserole, the 6th one this week. We were running out of fridge space for the leftovers, but she just kept making more. I would watch her from the corner of the kitchen, her posture curved and her newly grayed hair hanging over the food. I walked over and tugged at her sleeve, but she didn't respond. She was slathering butter on the top crust. Mom, I said, did you hear me? He needs his strength, she said. We can't be bothering him. Before I could say anything, Dad walked in. His eyes were red and swollen, but he was smiling. He had 3 cans of Coke in his hands. I'm starving, he said. I still have the taste of that horrible cafeteria food in my mouth. You would think hospitals had good food for how much money they make, Mom said. I know, right? Dad said. He placed the Cokes on the counter. Mom didn't want us to go near Jacob's room, but I was getting worried. I peered out from the kitchen. His room hung at the end of the hallway like an abandoned lighthouse, the only sign of life being the NY Yankees poster taped to his door. Near the ground, there was a small sliver of space to see if he had turned on his lights. It was still dark, as it had been for the last 3 days. I turned back to Mom. Shouldn't we check on him? I asked. I don't know why places like Wendy's or Burger King don't put up little shops in the hospital, Dad went on. I mean, you have hundreds of people who are stuck there for days on end. That's consistent business. It's all politics, Mom said. They sign these big contracts that are impossible to break. Right. That makes sense. Right. Dad was standing next to Mom now, his face inches from the casserole. He took a long sniff. "Ah," he said. "Smells great." "Do you want some of the leftovers while this finishes in the oven?" she asked. "I think we still have some from yesterday." "Wasn't the spinach and ricotta one good?" "Very good. Very, very good," he said. "I couldn't stop eating it." "Jacob's gonna devour these when he gets the appetite," Mom said. I turned back and took a step into the hallway. The distance between me and his room felt long and narrow, like a high wire. When I got away from the casserole smell, I hit a different smell. It reminded me of old gym socks. Even with Mom's array of candles and incense, I still smelled it. It cut through everything. The last time I saw Jacob was on the drive home from his treatment. His face was a pale green, and his eyes kept rolling back. Mom said I had to keep talking to him to keep his focus. I told him about my friends from school and how they keep pranking the teacher by putting tacks on their chair. It wasn't true. I saw it on a TV show once, but I was running out of material. It didn't matter though. Jacob didn't even respond. All he did was cough. Pink drool was spilling onto his t-shirt. "Danny," Mom said, "why don't you heat up some of those leftovers? We're all craving that spinach and ricotta casserole." "I can't stop thinking about it, Dad," I said. "I was dreaming about it last night." I ignored them. I kept my focus on my brother's door. I didn't dream about the casserole like Dad. I kept having a different dream. My brother was running into my room and flicking my ear. It was a game we used to play. We would tiptoe up to the other's door and then wait for our moment. Then the attacker ran in and got one or two good flicks before retreating. In my dream though, Jacob would run in and flick me, but I wouldn't move. I just stood there. He would flick and laugh, then flick some more. Sometimes he would flick so hard my ear flew off. "Earth to Danny," Dad said, snapping his fingers in my face. He was standing in front of me, blocking my view of Jacob's door. Do you mind heating up 4 portions of the casserole in case Jacob wants some? We're going to eat that before his next casserole, because we want to make sure Jacob's able to try it, because in my opinion, it was definitely your mom's best." I looked up at him and held my eye contact. I couldn't say what I was thinking, so I wanted Dad to feel it. Maybe if I stared long enough, my feelings would translate. But Dad looked at me for only a moment, then away. In that brief connection, though, I saw something I didn't want to see. It was like staring down the tunnel of the world's deepest well. "Come on now," he said. He grabbed my shoulders and turned me around. His voice got heavier. "You're going to want to heat up each piece individually, because if you do them all at once, then you won't get even heat through the pieces, and you'll probably have a couple that are too hot and others that are too cold, and then Jacob won't get the full picture of how good these casseroles are." There's a lot of weird focus on these casseroles. Probably human meat casseroles, to be honest. Dad let go of my shoulders and walked ahead of me, but I stayed in the hallway a moment longer. I turned to look at my brother's door one last time. I fantasized about walking up to it and going inside, but I was afraid Mom would yell at me. Besides, I never liked going in there. He had a puke bucket next to his bed, which always had pink splatters in it, and there were always clumps of hair on his pillows. Back before the last hospital visit, Mom would make me go in there and talk to him, but I always made up some excuse, like I had a cold and didn't want him to get sick. When I couldn't get out of it, I would stay in there for a few minutes and watch him try to breathe. I would tell him about some TV episode I saw, then run back to my room. I looked up. I thought I was walking back to the kitchen, but I was moving towards the door. I didn't want to, but I kept moving, like my limbs were controlled by a puppeteer. I put my hands on the doorknob. I turned. The gym sock smell filled my head like helium. Through the darkness, I could make out a sliver of my brother's face. The soft evening light fell on him. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. His arms were straight as rulers, and his fingers curled like a blooming rose. I walked to the side of his bed. Red spit fell down his lips. He looked like a frowning clown. I flicked his ear. It was hard. I walked out and closed the door behind me. As I walked back, I seemed to forget what the inside of his room looked like. With the door closed, it could be anything. Jacob could be doing jumping jacks or reading a comic book or plotting his next ear flick attack. When I walked into the kitchen, I heated up 4 plates of spinach and ricotta casserole. When they were done, I wrapped Jacob's plate in aluminum foil and put it in the oven to keep warm. Then Mom, Dad, and I sat in the dining room and ate in silence. Wow. He said, "Nah, my brother's not dead. I'm just gonna eat this casserole." That's crazy. Oh my gosh. So the brother's been dead for 3 days. Do dead bodies smell like gym socks? I wonder how many times he's gone into the room and then just pretended that he didn't go into the room. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you again to the wonderful authors who allowed me to share their stories on my channel. Be sure to check below for more information on how to support them. And also, like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. Bye.